All right, and I'm going to let the waiting room in.
Let them on in. Hello, everybody. As you are coming in to tonight's episode of We Are Listening, I am going to ask you to please make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned off. And make sure you have your microphone muted and your camera turned off. To probably help you in your settings if you know how to do it. It's not a big deal, but if you do know how to hide non-video participants, that'll help you so that you only see your hosts and your guests this evening. Welcome to We Are Listening, produced by San Diego Repertory Theatre in partnership with La Jolla Playhouse and the Old Globe. This is our bi-weekly salon where we are celebrating the artistic endeavors and creatives of Black folks here in the theater community, and to have open conversations about race, representation, inclusiveness, and just overall about our love and our contributions to the art. My name is Ahmed Dents, Development and Artistic Associate here at San Diego Repertory Theatre, and I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, even though as many of you are on this call don't need an introduction, we're going to do it anyway. Please welcome my co-host, La Jolla Playhouse Artistic Programs Manager and Local Casting Director, Jacole Kitchen. How you doing, Jacole?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Ahmed. Great to be here as always.
That's right. We have got a good one tonight. We have some spectacular guests that are about to join us in a few minutes. Before we get started, I do want to make a couple of quick announcements. I want to make sure all of you come back and join us in about 2 weeks, in exactly 2 weeks, as we will be joined by some heavyweights. That's right. Coming up on February 14th, Thursday at 5:30 p.m., we will be joined by Sam Woodhouse, Artistic Director of San Diego Repertory Theatre, Christopher Ashley, Artistic Director of La Jolla Playhouse, and Barry Edelstein, Artistic Director of the Old Globe. We will be talking to these three gentlemen about their views on race, representation, inclusiveness, and also how they see where the industry is going, especially as we're stepping into now this new year in this COVID landscape. And also, we're just respectively where they see their organizations going into the future and all of these organizations' respective action plans. So again, that is on February 4th, 5:30 p.m. right here on Zoom and Facebook Live. Head on over to sdrep.org/listening to get all the links where you can register. You can also go to San Diego Rep's Facebook page on our events page, and you can get information on how to register there. Another piece of information that I would like to share with you is just a couple of things we got going on here at San Diego Repertory Theatre. This weekend, the 22nd through the 24th, we are streaming Christina Wong for Public Office. This is a one-woman show, a comedy. It is absolutely spectacular. It is funny. It is timely. You can get your tickets for that at sdrep.org. That is tomorrow through Sunday. And then also coming up on February 7th at 5 p.m., Hershey Felder, Before Fiddler, another great show from Hershey Felder. Again, you can get your tickets at sdrep.org. sdrep.org. Go ahead and grab your tickets and get more information. And with that, I am going to turn it over to my co-host, Jacole. What's going on around your way?
Man, you got all fancy putting up screen shares and graphics and things.
I'm just going
to tell you what we got going on. Digital Wow series continues at La Jolla Playhouse with a couple of great things we have going on. Continued the Taxilandia series, which is a online salon regarding gentrification. Oh, look at you. An online salon regarding gentrification. This coming Saturday, we have Joy Yvonne Jones, who is going to be joining us. And then on Thursday, January 28th, Khalil Blue will be joining us to talk about the gentrifications in their neighborhoods of San Diego. Also, 1,000 Ways. Yes. In this time of solitude, this is an opportunity to be able to connect with a stranger through a phone call. It's an amazing experience and just connecting in a way that we haven't done in a very, very long time. Two other things that are going on. Also head over to Broadway On Demand because they are going to be featuring two of our projects, our Digital Wow project, Spit and Truth to Power, which is just a really amazing. We've talked a lot about it on this series. Please check it out. Also, it's on Broadway Demand. You can still check it out on our website. Also, if you love Spit and Truth to Power, we have an opportunity coming up for you to spit your own truth, doing that through the Sermon Challenge. We are asking folks to create their own response to Spit and Truth to Power using the music, Shammy D's music, using Elisa's words, whether it's through dance, spoken word, rap, whatever your medium is. We want to see how you spit your truth through our Sermon Challenge, and that is coming up. More information is on the website, lajollaplayhouse.org.
There you go. You didn't know I was going to hook you up like that, huh?
I didn't. I like it.
So again, everybody, welcome to We Are Listening. Again, we're here every 2 weeks. And again, coming up on our next episode, February 4th, Sam Woodhouse, Chris Ashley, Barry Edelstein, artistic directors respectively from San Diego Repertory Theatre, La Jolla Playhouse, and the Old Globe. They will be joining us on February 18th. Mr. Dahan Blevins, founder of Urban Warriors and Kumbah Fest, will be joining us for a Kumbah Fest preview. And then on March 4th, we will have Candace Crystal. She is the associate artistic director at Trinity Theater, and she will be joining us as well. So again, come back and join us, sdrep.org, to get more information about all of that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get into tonight's episode. We have been looking forward to this one. Now, I asked Dea to come on our inaugural, our first episode, and she was like, nah, I'm gonna hold off a little bit. But we are really happy that her and her husband are here to join us tonight. So I'm gonna ask Dea and Osborn to go ahead and turn their camera on, and please welcome to We Are Listening, Dea and Osborn Hurston. Come on in, y'all.
As they're entering the room, Ahmed, I'm just going to point out that we made not one, but two asks prior to this. We asked Dea to be a part of our very first inaugural episode, and she was like, no, not yet. And then we asked Osborn if he would be interested in being a part of our board member episode. And you know what? Osborn is just real busy and important. He did not get a chance to see my emails prior to that episode airing. And so we came back one more time and said, what if we get you both together? And that is how we got to where we are today, to be able to have Dea and Osborn join us. So thank you so much. It only took us 3 asks to get here, but we couldn't be happier that this is how it ended up. This is exactly how it was supposed to be.
Throwing shade?
Yeah, I think they threw some shade at us, Osborn. I think.
No, we just started with truth. We said that this show was about truth and honesty and who we are and where we're coming from.
It just sounded like shade. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't do shade here.
We put my umbrella down.
Dea, Osborn, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. And how y'all doing today?
Doing okay.
Staying busy.
That's right. That's right. We know what we typically do here on We Are Listening is before we get into it, like I say, anybody can do an introduction, anybody can read a bio, but we like our guests to kind of give us their own bio, give us their own intro. So I'm going to toss to you, and then however you want to do it, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourselves and how y'all got into this performing arts theater world.
Ladies first.
No, this is the part I hate. This is the part of the show that I hate, and I want you to change this, at least for just tonight, right?
You want to skip this tonight?
Do you want me to read your bio so we go back to the reading of the bio?
Okay, I guess we go back to I guess we go back to the read. I guess we go back to the old school style. I guess we go back and do this like Johnny Carson style.
Osborn's prepared, right?
Yeah. First, I want to say thank you to both of you. I mean, I think this We Are Listening is fantastic, and I've had an opportunity to listen to a couple of the broadcasts, and I've taken a lot of good notes. For me, it's been very informative, and it's really been inspiring. So I think, as you both said, getting me on here was a little bit of an effort because, I really like to just stay under the radar, if you will. But I'll try to give my story real briefly here. I was born in the City of the Angels, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's Los Angeles. And I'm the oldest of 5 children, and somehow, some way, my parents found their way to putting us, the 5 of us, in Catholic school. So I'm Catholic by religion, for whatever that's worth. But my point is, they put 5 of us through 12 years of Catholic school. Among the best education I think a person could ask for. And from that, I had the opportunity to go to Stanford University, majored in economics there, went to UCLA, majored in accounting with a minor in finance. And to get to my involvement with the arts, it really started at work. I'm a portfolio manager, and one of the portfolios I had an opportunity to manage was for the San Diego Performing Arts League. And when they asked me to become a member, my thought was, okay, I'll be a good corporate citizen. I'll join this board and be on this board. I mean, that's about all I was really thinking. And I'll say I was very naive at that point because I can remember being vice president and thinking, oh, I wonder who's going to be the next president. And lo and behold, it was me. So I'm so naive. Anyway, in my role as president of the Performing Arts League, and the Performing Arts League, just so you know, its mantra is advocacy, assisting with the selling of tickets and supporting arts organizations. But anyway, in that role, one of the things we did was we wanted to reach out to all of the arts groups in San Diego. And at that time, I think there were over 100. And I remember thinking to myself, geez, I would really like to know more about what these arts organizations, theater, music, dance, play art, are involved in. And while serving on that board, a lady, and you may know her, Dea and I are really close friends with her, Sydney Baker at the La Jolla Playhouse. She was the development director there, and she was also on the Performing Arts League board at that time. And she looked at me and said, wow, you should be on the Playhouse board. And the interesting thing about that, and this, you'll like this, the first time they asked me, I said no. I said, don't have the time for it. And fortunately, they came back a second time and asked me, and I had a chance to, see a couple plays, and I was hooked at that point. So that's really how I got involved with the arts, really starting with the La Jolla Playhouse board, the San Diego Performing Arts League. And, apart from that, I've been on other boards, civic boards, city board, county board, a lot of different boards. And I think it's probably because of my, financial background. I'll let Dea maybe talk about herself, but that's, sort of how I got involved. And, the one thing I would say to Jacole and Ahmed is, the one thing I've realized in all of this time is no one has told me I could sing. My wife tells me I can't dance. I know I can't draw. So, when I listen to these broadcasts and when I interact with artists, I'm really coming at it from a different perspective. And that perspective for me is my involvement through boards that I've been sitting on. And there's certainly some things I can talk about and would like to talk about in that regard as they pertain not just to theater, but, to dance, to music, even though I know our focus here is on theater primarily, but I think a lot of my experience translates really across the board to all arts groups and to civic groups for that matter. So.
For the record, Osborn, before we throw over to Dea, I want to say that the Performing Arts League got me the same way. I was sitting on the board. I'd been on the board for a while. It was time to switch over leadership. I actually raised my hand and said, I am not interested in being the president. And so I ended up being the executive director. Go figure. So that's how they got me too. Dea, what about you? How'd you get into all this?
So my story is very different from Osborne's. I was raised in a small town in Ohio on the border of Pennsylvania. And the only exposure we really had to arts was in church or in school. And that continued for me until I went away to college. And I went to school in Minnesota. And one of the first things I ever saw at a professional theater was at the Guthrie Theater. And I'm not sure if it was a workshop or a reading. I didn't know enough to tell the difference, but it was for colored girls. And it was amazing. I didn't know plays like that existed, words like that existed, that people told stories about women like me. So that was when I first got hooked. And then I met Osborn. We met in Minnesota and we moved here to California and we lived in Los Angeles. And we would come to San Diego to go to the Old Globe and go to the opera. We'd take little mini vacations down here. And then we realized that we could actually live here. And so we did move here. The first theaters that we attended when we moved here were the Old Globe and the Rep, the San Diego Rep. One of the first productions we saw was Sam and Doug. They were in a play. I think it's called, I always get it wrong, but K2, about two guys that are on a mountain. And I think one of them has to eat the other one. I don't know if you remember. It was at St. Cecilia's, which was a funeral parlor, and it hadn't moved downtown yet. And they had this mountain on the stage, and these two white boys were hanging off the stage. And I just thought, what is this? What are we watching? And so when the Rep moved downtown, that was our very, very first subscription that we purchased. And we had young children at the time. That was a big deal for us. We couldn't afford the regular subscription. We purchased the Friday night preview, and we would come down to the Rep every 6 weeks and see a play on Friday night. So Osborn was involved with the Arts and the Performing Arts League and different things like that. And I was at home. I was the PTA mom and every other mom that needed to be. And when they left, I had empty nest syndrome. And Osborn said, well, then, you need to get out there and go with me and do these things. And that's kind of how it started for me with getting involved with the arts, was just being a good, dutiful wife. That's how it started, just doing what my husband asked me to do. But San Diego has been a wonderful place for us to grow in this community in a lot of different ways. And we're so happy to be a part of this community.
There's one other thing, Ahmed and Jacole, I want to say about my exposure to the arts. And, it did begin when I was in high school. As I said, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. And, we had like a library club. We went to see movies, which was something, I imagine if I was in a public school, we probably wouldn't have had, a trip to see a movie. And then while I was at Stanford, I had the real opportunity to study overseas for 6 months in Vienna, Austria. And I can recall, we went to the opera there and, the museums. And so, I mentioned that because I think seeds were planted, at a relatively early age that, when the opportunity came to trigger that, it blossomed. And one other thing I'll say in that regard is, well, two things, because I think about the arts and I think about our involvement from a generational standpoint. And, one of the things I guess I want to talk about later on is, the power that we have, you, Ahmed, you, Jacole, and people who are listening to affect changes for the next generation. I know we're pretty much focused on ourselves now. But I think, I know one of the things Dea and I did we still do it, whenever the kids come to town, they know they're going to do something in the arts, and when they were young, they went to things, in the arts. And as I said, to finish this up real quick. So, I was involved with the Performing Arts League, and we had a real close friend who was involved with the opera. And, I was thinking, I went to the opera in Vienna. I'd like to go to the opera here in San Diego. And at the time I thought, all you need to do is know somebody on the inside to get tickets. And I found out that wasn't the case with the opera. If you wanted to go to an opera, you had to pay to go to the opera.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It bugs me. So we paid to go to the opera. We don't have season tickets, but we do go, to see that. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that early exposure to the arts, you just don't know where it's going to take you. And again, looking at the next generation, dragging them out to arts events and things like that, that's planting the seeds. You don't know what's going to happen. But I think as we're talking, we know it's the right thing to do. And we know, I think, the reasons it should be done.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
sticking with the opera.
We're going to talk. You won't have to ask us any questions. We may let you ask us a question.
I do want to say, Osborn, that I do understand what you were saying in the beginning, because, primarily my professional time in the arts has primarily been dealing on the transactional side and the money side. My experience has primarily been either in running ticketing or now dealing with philanthropy, not so much the art side, but I'm my mind now is really invested in what this, like you said, what this can be for the future, and what are the economic, what is the economic route, and how do we fund the arts, and how do we fund these young artists, and how does that move this next generation to be able to take charge of their own, financial literacy in the arts, and make sure that they're taken care of in their endeavors, and making sure they're getting the right, getting paid for what they do. And how does philanthropy branch out, not just in theater, but how does that branch out to be, how do theaters and organizations also branch out in philanthropy, and how they spend their money to take care of the areas that they're in, especially like us here downtown at the Rep. My focus is how do we as in the development department, how do we now move out to encompass all the other problems that we have here on the footprint that we inhabit? Because when people come down here to shows, you might have to step over a homeless person to get to your show. How do we become stewards and spreading that money around to our community, into which our actual venue sits on, and the people who have to live here and are here? And so I just completely understand what you're saying now. That's kind of where my focus is too. It's art, but I'm really more exploring on what's the financial literacy of this thing.
Well, I want to say one more thing, and I was trying to figure out when to say, but I'll just say it now. Our political capital is as high as it's ever going to be. We can thank, in a way, the murders that occurred last year. We have an African-American vice president who, at some point, God willing, will end up being, the most powerful person in the world. So, I say to you, Jacole, I say to you, Ahmed, I say to, us who are listening, our political capital is at its highest. And there are things that we should be doing this year, not planning for the future. And I have some more thoughts on that, but I'll let you guys ask some questions, and I'll get to that. But I just want to make that point for you guys and for the audience.
I just want to take a second and point out, and you mentioned our vice president, which takes me to the historic day yesterday. So y'all, if any of y'all watched the inaugurations, they kept commenting on how the Bidens like showed up in mass, right? That like the whole Biden crew was there. Well, if there wasn't proof that this is our first family of San Diego sitting in front of us right now, the Hurstons have showed up like the Bidens. We have the entire like Hurston brood. Every time they're saying somebody has shown up in the waiting room, it's a Hurston. So the Hurstons have shown up like the Bidens. So this is our first family. So I actually want to take it there. So since we, you know, you've talked about, you know, your family a little bit, you taking them, treating them to the arts when they come to town. So I'd love to know how the Hurstons came to be. Dea, you mentioned that you all met in Minnesota and then came down here. But Osborn, I'd like to hear from you how you all met.
This is a setup, I know, but that's okay. That's okay. It's a setup, and actually, I'm prepared to answer this question. Okay, so as you will recall, I said I'm from Los Angeles, and as Dea said, she's from Ohio, and we met in Minnesota. And, you know, as I said, I went there for an accounting job, which, you know, after a few months, I realized this wasn't my cup of tea. And Dea and I had I would say a loose mutual friend. I mean, he was very loose to me, and, you know, Dea probably knew him more than I did. But anyway, he basically used me as his foil to see Dea. So, you know, we went down to Dea's office there, and Dea will tell you I was not dressed for the interview. I mean, we won't deal with that. But she saw through what I was wearing to the potential. And so, so she asked me, would you marry me? And, you know, it's the truth. I said, well, I was looking for a job. So, you know, you say things when you're under duress. And I said, I'm looking for a job. I'm in Minnesota. My home is in California. Yeah, But anyway, so we did get married, and I'll tell you, from my perspective, it's been one long date. So,
Love that. But did you get the job?
He got the job as my husband. Pay well, but it has really good benefits.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
And I probably wouldn't tell that story the same way, but it's interesting to hear how he told it. Yeah. Because I didn't ask him to marry me the first 5 minutes. It was at least 20 minutes.
Well, you had to size him up.
I had to read the resume. It was the resume. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the two of you have come a long way since then, but a long way since not being able to afford the premium subscriber tickets and having to be Friday night subscribers at the Rep. I think it's safe to say you've come a long way since then. And you mentioned earlier, Osborn, that you were being a good corporate citizen to start getting into this. But my question is, first, why the arts? And then the second part of that is, how do you determine who you're going to give to, and at what size? Because you all are donors of almost every theater in San Diego, or of subscribers you all have touched almost all of the theaters in San Diego. But I would say the greatest impact has been probably on the 3 theaters that participate in this show: the Globe, the Rep, and the Playhouse. So just, want to hear a little bit about how you decide where and how you are going to give.
Dea was, we do have a different approach, to our giving. As I was saying before, my involvement with the arts, my active involvement with the arts was really by happenstance. As I say, getting on the San Diego Performing Arts League board and then the Playhouse board. So that's really was my happenstance. And, in one of my organizations, I was fortunate enough to be on the foundation board, the arm of the organization that gives out money. And, as I said, early on, I said, wow, there are 190, there are 100 plus organizations. I'd like to give some money to all of them. Well, obviously they wouldn't let me do that. But I feel very wanting to do that because I do believe, and I think there are certainly a lot of worthy organizations, big and small. The other thing, as I mentioned, is, not just being involved with arts boards or groups, but with civic groups as well. So that's sort of how I approach the little bit of money I give away. Dea gives the bulk of it. So, but I would say, as I said, I'm very blessed in the sense that with my present organization, because of my exposure to the arts, they often come to me and will, ask for an opinion. What do you think of this group? Or what do you think of that group? And of course, they have no idea that I would say, yeah, give them everything they want. I have to sort of tone it down. But so that has allowed me, to sort of spread the wealth among a lot of, deserving organizations, not just theater, but music and dance, et cetera.
And what's your approach, Dea?
So I think when I first started out, the focus was on access to children because I didn't have that access when I was young, and I saw how important it was. And also, even though we're such a leader in not just our arts community, but in the national arts community, when I looked at the children of color, and this is still an issue, they are not exposed to our museums and different things like that, except for through school. I was with a group of young Black men down at Balboa Park, and there was an exhibit at the Museum of Art, and they were looking at the banners. And these were Link Achievers. This was a number of years ago. These young men are our best, and they didn't know that they could walk into the museum on their own. So there's fault all around. That's a whole, but exposure is so important. So that's how it started with us. And then my focus is on women and on Black women and women of color. So I have several Hurston Fellows at different organizations, and all the fellows are for women. All of my fellows are females. And basically everything that I do support at any organization, any of the arts organization, I'm very specific about how my money is spent, and it usually goes towards something like that I've discussed.
Where I guess I want to get to the obvious point of where we are, and the thing that this show was born out of, was of, what was the final match that was thrown in the tinder of the murder of George Floyd last year. What are your thoughts on, where we went, the journey we've been on last year, specifically in the arts? Because, now that, like I always say, the organization has made statements and starting to move and put people in positions, and here and going there. What have been your thoughts over the last year? Again, specifically with the arts, not just in the race issue, but as far as, how things have been shut down. But what have been your thoughts as far as, let's just say, what have been your thoughts as far as when it's come to race and representation and the issues now that have been raised even further now that everybody jumped on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon and are, like I said, they've made the statements and written everything out, but now as we're moving on, it's time to put the rubber to the road and see is that going to continue? Is now that Biden and Kamala are in, and vaccines are going to take place, and we might open back up later on in the year? Are these commitments still going to continue? What are your thoughts on the journey we've been on this last year?
You want to answer first?
First.
Yeah, there's just there's a lot, and it's been an emotional journey for me in this arts community as an advocate of the arts, and as a Black artist. It's been difficult, and it started actually with COVID, not the murder of George Floyd. It started when they put out that poster, one story, one theater, one story.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't one Black theater represented at all.
Mhm.
Not one. And nobody took responsibility for that, and they haven't until this day. Everybody has passed the buck and said things like, you know what they said, well, we didn't know there are any. Common Ground Theater is actually the oldest theater, continuous theater in San Diego, and that's a Black theater. So just for me personally, that really hurt, because I support a lot of those organizations, and that just never should have happened. So yesterday, something was said that I think that we could apply to this, and I'm going to paraphrase that, you know, you have to remember in order to move forward, right? In order to do better. And so I'm really hesitant about the sincerity of doing better when you don't acknowledge that you did something like that, that hurt. Well, not only would, you know, that hurt not only the Black community, Black artist community, but the community of color of artists. And so then they just scrapped that and reorganized and came up with something new. And they said, yeah, that happened, but we're over it. Let's just move forward. So when you don't acknowledge that you've hurt a whole community, I don't know how you expect the community to move forward. But I haven't moved forward. I'll just be honest about that. I was just really hurt by that. And I'll just leave it at that. I know Osborn has a lot to say about stuff too. Yeah.
Well, you know, Jacole, if I understood your question, I mean, and I hope I did. I mean, I think my answer is that where we are today, we're treading water at best. We are so significantly underwater, and that's why I was making the point about our political capital being as high as it has ever been lately, you know, thanks to, you know, sadly the people that were murdered, et cetera, last year. I mean, I look at this today, hopefully as the reset. And again, I have some more thoughts in this regard. But to answer your question, I mean, you know, I think about the organizations I have been involved with over the years. I mean, I'd say a couple decades, you know, and, you know, I think I recall listening to you, Jacole, and maybe Michael Taylor talking about being the only ones, you know, and that was the way it was decades ago, you know, so nothing has really changed. I mean, I think people would like to think so, and as Dea was saying, it hasn't happened yet. So we're treading water, you know, and I think there's some ways that we can start swimming, if you will, that, you know, I'm happy to talk about. So
I would love to hear you talk about it. I actually was going to ask a different question, but I actually would love to hear your thoughts on the ways that we can start swimming.
So I want to say one other thing about the poster, that was a fundraiser for all the theater groups. And what they did was leave out all the theaters of color. So we're talking about an economic problem. It's an economic issue that all the theaters of color were just completely left out of. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I'm so glad that you're bringing up that part of it, and I want to shoot back to how do we swim, but I'm glad that you're bringing up that part of it because you're right. This community has started to go, yeah, that happened, but we're not going to talk about, yeah, that happened, that misstep. But even when we talk about it, even Dea, as many of the conversations I've had, and I've been on so many different sides of this conversation, now being on the board who has partnered with what once Theater One Story turned into the Theater Alliance. They are now an arm of the San Diego Performing Arts League. Obviously, I am at one of the institutions that got highlighted very high in this conversation. And I'm really glad that you're bringing up this part of it, that it wasn't because when folks talk about it to me in the conversations that I've had, it's that it was that all of the theaters in San Diego were represented, but they were represented by photos of white people, and that it didn't represent the artists and the art that we make at these theaters because all of the artistic directors are white, and the art, and which is a completely different question. I think it's nuts that we are 8 months into this conversation, and this is the first time that I am hearing it lifted up, that the other part of that problem was that wasn't every theater in San Diego that was represented. That was the PWIs. That was the predominantly white institutions in San Diego that were represented. And that's a very different side of a very real problem. So how do we swim?
I mean, I think it's somewhat of an easy answer, Jacole. If you aren't in the room where the decisions are being made, you aren't going to achieve success, and I think that's the bottom line. As I've listened to these conversations, Ahmed, and as I've listened to actors talk, if you are not in the room where the decisions are being made, do not expect anything different. Do not expect anything different. If you aren't in the room saying, well, this should be done, what about this? Don't expect change. And so that's why, again, I'm just coming back to this whole idea, that the political capital is there, and as I was thinking about things, Jacole, for this show here today, I was thinking, okay, I have a daytime job, I have a career, I have, that, but I also have an interest, a passion in the arts, if you will. And as I look at actors, and directors, casting directors, et cetera, I mean, your jobs are performing, basically. The other part of that should be getting on a board someplace so that you can affect changes for someone else. I mean, it's not enough to say, well, I need to be on a stage, or I need to be, whatever. If you are not in the room, and I'm talking about the people who listen to this show, I mean, I can think of a couple good names, if you aren't on those boards, if you aren't in the room, don't expect change. Don't expect change. You may get a little chump change, no offense, Ahmed, yeah, you can do a show, something like that. That is not control. That ain't control. And here's my other thought. I mean, right or wrong. I mean, I hope I'm not being naive in saying I think with my involvement with the Playhouse at this point, I like to think that I've been able to expand that board, to include artists. And I think people listening will probably say, you don't deserve much of that credit, or maybe none of that credit. But I like to think that, that board has expanded, because of the fact that I was on the nominating committee for a while. I've been on that board long enough so that I talk directly to the managing director, to the artistic director. Look, this is the deal. I still have conversations that I need to have with them, But if you're not in the room, you're blowing smoke. So here's the other thing that I was going to say, so boards are opening up now, it's like, say, you've got one person of color on the board. If you're going to make a commitment, bring 2 or 3 in. Don't because see, we leave Jacole someone else will replace you. When I leave a board, someone else will replace me, as opposed to 2, 3, 4 people. So,
Yes.
you know, the trickle should be dead. The trickle should die. It should die this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Osborne's right about that. So all of these organizations could have done better. It really should not have taken the murder of George Floyd for us to be at this point, for them to start doing better. But who decides what is better? Because adding one new Black board member of color is not better. You probably should have been doing that before. That's part of the, you know, doing better before. So Osborne's right. It can't be one. It needs to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? In order to make this change happen. And then the other side of that, and Osborne talked about this, he just said it in a different way. It really is important for us to be in the room. Our voice is important. And if we're not there saying those things, how do we expect people to hear them? And how do we expect to affect change? So I think that it's really important to be a board member of color. So I encourage everybody to go out there and look at a nonprofit arts board and see if you can be a part of that board.
You know, I want to add to that, Ahmed and Jacole, you know, because the rub is always, well, you know, it takes money to make money, or it takes money to be on these boards. And, you know, arts organizations have had that discussion, you know, and, you know, people need to think of themselves in terms of not just, you know, the money that they can bring, but the energy, the voice, the different perspective. And so what I'm saying is there are assets, there are real assets that a person has to offer, you know, to a board beyond, you know, the ability to support it. I mean, we know that, you know, arts organizations, they don't live by money alone. I mean, they don't live by, you know, what's the ticket sales, you know, they get part of their support, you know, from philanthropy. But I think another part of that is just the energy that people have, you know, hey, this is a great organization, hey, this is a good play, this, whatever it is. So that has value too. That needs to be capitalized on. And I think that's a way that artists can think of themselves, you know, to Dea's point about, let's get on a board someplace. You know, I have more to offer than just my pocketbook. And, you know, the reality is our pocketbooks are thin anyway, you know, so, I mean, there isn't a lot that we can, you know, even if we wanted to, I think that's a prohibition. So, I mean, as I said, as I've listened to these broadcasts, Ahmed, I think, God, these people should be on boards, you know, quite honestly. I think
Well, and
oh, no, go ahead.
I'd say one other thing. I would hope that a year from now, we could be on this show and we could say, you know, okay, a year later, we've accomplished this, at least in terms of what Dea and I are talking about. You know, people in the room. I mean, I think that's the first call of order.
It's funny that you say that because, and that's why I love that we keep bringing people on to reinforce this. Remember, Jacole, when Sheldon Epps was on with us and we brought that up about the boards with him, and his thing was, you know, I'm so glad we had Sheldon Epps and we had him on early, because for me, it was kind of like, yeah, we're bringing a nationally renowned artistic director on here who has done it all, and he's Black. You know, and what you're just saying is how he was talking about how the give-get structure has to be, you know, that has to be reimagined or dismantled, because he was saying too many organizations were depending on, well, how much can that board member, how much can they contribute? And Sheldon was saying it's not about how much they contribute, it's how much energy can they bring. How much what is their reach? What is their energy? And that also goes to when we had the board member edition and we had Jasmine Sadler on, a new board member here at the Rep. And her whole thing was that her thing as a board member was not just about it being theater. She wanted to bring, she wanted to bring the people from her field in. She wanted to expose the people from the engineering field. And from her, she wanted to bring that energy and different types of artists. They were artists, but they're engineers. She wanted to bring that energy. So it's speaking exactly what you're saying. It's not just about how much money can they give. What's the energy? What's the influence? What's the, what is the other capital that they can bring into this?
Then I do want to talk about money.
Yes, we
All right.
will. But before we get to that, because you're 100%, we do need to talk about it. We can't ignore that part of it. But before we go there, I also do want to say that we perceive the word board with no matter what level the organization is operating at, we perceive the board to be it's going to be a huge monetary investment. That is not the case for every board, even the ones that you do have a buy-in. I'm going to say the Performing Arts League board is still an extremely reasonable, and I'm not going to tell you what I was making at the Rep when I first joined the board, but I was able to afford still that, and I was asked to be on the board of the Carlsbad Play Readers at one point. It was early on. It was before I knew what a board member did, but they were talking about $50, and so talk to the organization and start small. If you feel, not every organization is going to ask you for the board give that a La Jolla Playhouse, a Rep, an Old Globe is going to. If there is an organization that you would be interested in having your voice heard at, start there and talk to them and start small even and talk to them and say, I'd like to be a part of your board. What does that entail? And I believe there's, especially at these smaller organizations, that there might be some negotiation involved because of exactly what Osborn is saying. We do have a lot of political capital right now, and it benefits them to have you representing that organization. So start the conversation. Dea, let's talk about money.
Well, just that, okay, so you don't, all right, money doesn't have to be the number one factor for joining a board. But I feel as Black people, we need to invest in our own, okay? Because when we were invited to go on the cruise, that one we couldn't refuse, that brought us here, okay? The only thing that we really were able to bring with us was the ability to produce art, to tell a story, to sing a song. And we have not been good stewards of our own productions of art. And so it is important that we invest in our own people. So if you can do it, you should do it. We need to do that, and we need to do more of it.
I two things in this regard, talking about money. I think what organizations really want to hear from you is, okay, look, I don't have a lot of money, but you are one of the most important organizations I know. So in terms of the few dollars I have, you're at the top of that list. You are my priority. I think that's something that any board would really appreciate, where you're trying to come on and, the financial circumstances is an issue. Look, I can't do this, but you guys are so important to me. Of the $3 I give out, you're going to get 2 of them, if you will. Let's see. The other thing, I forget what I was going to say. I'll come back to the other stuff, but that was so to the financial part of it. Oh, I know. So what Dea was saying about investing in our own, which she's really true. Ahmed, Jacole, I wonder, are you guys familiar with Community Actors Theater, CAT?
Yes.
Hamilton.
I don't know if you guys have had her on or not.
Yeah.
We have not, no.
I was going to suggest her if we didn't come on, I was going to, I always believe in giving something, better if I can't do something or if I'm going to leave something. But I would suggest that, get her on, talk to her. I mean, she's been in the community for decades.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask, just while we're on this conversation of representation and why it's so important to be in the room and to be on the boards, and you all are in the room in so many different capacities and in so many different rooms, can you speak at all to some of the changes that you have seen because you are in the room, or some of the effects that you have seen because your voice was heard in the room or because you represented in that space?
Well, I do want to give the nod to, like I said, the Playhouse. As I said, they have expanded the board, as I said, to include an artist, to include someone from the military, to include someone from education. So, I do see that slowly happening.
So I think Osborne's being modest, because he's been on the board of the Playhouse since
I just say decades. I don't say anything else.
It's been a long time, but he was on Chris Ashley's search committee, and I think that's an important position to be on, and I think his voice was heard on that committee. And there were certain things that Osborne talked about that maybe wouldn't have been talked about if he hadn't been on that committee. And maybe we wouldn't have Chris Ashley in San Diego now if those things hadn't come up. So, just saying how important it is to be in the room and have your voice in the room.
One other thing I was just going to say, I just became aware, I mentioned that, I can think of at least one board where there is an actor on it, which is a good thing. I mean, it's taken this particular organization, I think, too long to move in that direction. But again, the challenge is the same. One is not enough. Mm-hmm. Bringing on one lone voice, why bother? I mean, that's being a little harsh, I think, but I mean, you get my point. If we're talking about, making significant changes, one and done is not it.
Well, because one voice is easy to dismiss. 6 voices are not easy to dismiss.
Yeah. Let's, I want to move the conversation a little bit as we talked earlier about doing this, for the next generation and for those who are the young people who are coming. And I kind of want to take a little bit to the, the Black Artists Collective, because that's a spectacular group of young people. We had Joy and Rich and Zach on a couple of weeks ago, and we were having this conversation. And, I just want to talk about that a little bit for these younger people who are entering this, this time, and they're really hungry, and a lot of them are just now learning the business, and they're just now learning what it is to have to deal with bigger organizations and what it is to have to deal with, the business side of trying to, get grants and get the money and how that comes about. Can you guys give me your thoughts on that, about, how you feel about, especially coming out of the situation we are in now? Because it's kind of like, it seems like we've kind of been on hold, and the whole theater community has been on hold, and now we're looking at all these new avenues and new ways to produce art. And, but at the same time, we still want to make sure that, as everyone's so eager to get on and do some things, that we still want to make sure they have the right path of going forward, and to make sure that they're making the steps to be treated in an equitable and responsible way. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, as far as your ideas, as far as this, younger people coming up in this performing arts world, especially at this time now?
I'll let you go.
Well, I think that they are a lot more together than I was at their age. They have a lot of knowledge, but I think one thing that a lot of people forget is that art is a business.
Mm-hmm.
It is a business, and at the end of the day, that's how it plays out. And that is one thing that I would tell the young people, that this is what's going on. It's not, hey kids, let's put on a show.
Yeah.
And even if it is, hey kids, let's put on a show, that's a business. That's literally called show business. And it takes that kind of savvy. It takes somebody who is going to be willing to take that lead and step up and be a producer and know what that means as far as delegating and putting a team together. It does mean somebody needing to be savvy and go out and raise some money or know where to resource from, even if it's not direct fundraising, know where to pull their resources. It is 100% a business. And I think that that's one of the issues with some of these young companies. And I appreciate what a lot of these young BIPOC artists are doing with the young companies. I'm not talking about the ones that have been around for a long time. But a lot of these young companies coming up, whether they're PWIs, whether they're BIPOC, whether they're affinity spaces, it's artists who are coming together for a really good reason and for a greater good, and to say we want to support each other and we need to. But somebody needs to step out of that artist mindset and be willing to put on that business hat and lead. Otherwise, what? If you don't have somebody that's willing to do that, to produce, to step out and make hard decisions, because that's the part that I'll just say that you're 100% correct. And I would love to see that business side. I would love to see, perhaps the Performing Arts League could come to you all about hosting a workshop for young artists about that business savviness and how to, literally the business of the art.
I think we've done that. I mean, we could probably do it.
It needs to be done again.
It's a new regime.
It needs to be done again.
Yes,
but San Diego
absolutely it does.
Black Artists Collective is a relatively new organization. And it came about because the Old Globe sponsored a Breaking Bread for Black artists in San Diego. And then everything kind of blew up, and the collective stayed together and just became an organization.
Mm-hmm.
The collective is featured this Saturday night on Powers of New Voices at the Old Globe. So it's their first artistic adventure, and we're really excited about it. Yeah.
There's another artist that's being featured at the Powers of New Voices Festival, if I am not mistaken, Miss Dea, as she is known in the artist community. I feel like that's your artist name. I feel like that's a side of you that this community is just starting to get to know, and maybe a lot of folks on this call are part of the community that don't know that you are an artist in your own right as well. You are a playwright. I learned recently you had a stint as a stand-up comedian. Can we talk about can you talk about Miss Dea the artist versus Dea Hurston the philanthropist?
Well, she has a different name.
And I'm sure there's a lot more to go along with that.
But yeah, I'm really happy to be on this side of the fence, on the artist side of the fence, after supporting artists for so long, being a commissioner for San Diego and as a commissioner of arts for San Diego. I didn't think I would be on this side of the fence, but it's been wonderful, and I'm very excited to be on this side of the fence. And I do have a piece in Powers of New Voices on Saturday night, and I'm excited by it. Directed by Lamar Perry. And
you are the playwright. I don't think that you have stated that. So this is a play of yours.
I am the playwright. And this particular play is really the first play I let anybody see. And that was 3 years ago when I came out of the writing closet. And my dear husband is the inspiration for this play, but it's not about Osborn. Okay.
So is that a muse? Muse, is that it? I'm your muse?
Yes, you are her muse.
That's what I've always thought. I just wanted to say, Jacole, for me, I am happy where I'm at, or at least on my side of the fence, if you will. As I said, I have no artistic skills. I'm very comfortable on the, in a boardroom, if you will, whether it's an arts group or, a civic group, et cetera. And one of the things I think to what you were saying, what Ahmed was saying was, I think Dea was saying about, millennials being a lot smarter, and I think that's true. I do think, however, we all have to pay dues. You don't start at the top of anything. And I think in that regard, mentorship is very important. I think for anybody on listening to this that's, I'll say under 30, find an old person to latch onto. I don't think you're that old, Ahmed, so maybe you might not qualify, or you, Jacole, but I mean, there are a lot of older people out there, I think that artists can, or younger people can latch onto for that mentorship, that guidance, to sort of cut the time frame. But, there has to be a certain amount of patience, I think, so.
Dea, what does writing do for you? What does it do for you personally or spiritually? I kind of want to get into that conversation, the art that we do. What does it do for you? What does it mean to you to be able to sit down and write that play and share it with people?
So the whole thing started for me in a bad way. I had a terrible accident about 14 years ago, and it took my life away. I was out of commission for 6 years, and I had over 14 different surgeries and procedures. And in the middle of that, then I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had my kidney removed. So I was at a pretty low point, and I had been a very active person. I was a commissioner at the time, and basically I didn't have a life. And I started writing at home. And when I tried to get my life back, the first thing I did was take this class with Playhouse Project. And it was a recollections class for old people. So that's what I did. I took that. And that's kind of how it started. In that very first play, people were just very encouraging to me. The second play I wrote was a play called I Want to Marry Little Stevie Wonder. And it's about a 12-year-old girl who lives in a small town, and she has great dreams about meeting little Stevie Wonder, falling in love with him, marrying him, living in Nat King Cole's mansion in Beverly Hills, and having 3 little black blind boys that look just like him. And so that was the second play, and I'm happy to share with you that that play has been commissioned by the Old Globe for further development. So I'm excited about that, excited to get started to work on that. And then the third play is The In Sickness and Health, and that's the one that you'll see on Saturday night. So what it did for me, Ahmed, is it gave me a life. It gave me a life. And then also, just between the 4 of us.
Because that's all that's on this call right now.
That's all. I'm going to talk about Delicia Turner Sonnenberg, right, who I've been her mentor for too many years. And now she's my mentor. She mentors me. And so Delicia, who I've supported again for many, many years, would never invite me to any of the Black Girl Magic things. It turned out I wasn't Black Girl Magic. I was just Black Girl Money. And they didn't invite me, right? But now I get invited to the Black Girl Magic thing. Yeah.
See, I'm waiting to get invited to the Black Girl Money circle. You're trying to get into the Black Girl Magic. I'm trying to get into the Black Girl Money. So maybe we could exchange Rolodexes or something. I don't know. Well,
know-
oh, sorry, go ahead, Ahmed.
No, go
you
for it. Go
No,
for
you
it.
please. You.
Well, and the reason I'll tell you, because I kind of wanted to go back because I kind of wanted to get like I kind of wanted to ask you, Osborn, about being on the board and what is the responsibility of the board as far as what they do, as far as taking care of the staff of the organization? Like, what's the responsibility of the board of making sure that the organization is taking care of the staff? You know, because we're, you know, one thing that's been illuminated through all this, that like I said, we these are conversations we've all had in the corner or in the side, you know, over here in the lobby during the show, or over here, this, that, or at this party, whatever. But I think a lot of things that have come out of this situation, especially now that we've been on lockdown, we've entered this Zoom culture where it, you know, me and Jacole have talked about this, and all of our coworkers have talked about this. It seems like we're doing more work now than we were doing when there was actually live theater, and we're spending more time in meetings than we did before. And I think a lot of things have bubbled up from not just from BIPOC staff, from all staff. You know, things have come up that have, you know, maybe now people have more of a, you know, they have more of a freedom to say, because just the situation of that everybody's been put into this strange place. And so what is the responsibility of board members as far as looking after, or what is the part of the board members at looking after the mental state and the welfare of the staff of an organization?
Well, I mean, that's very critical. I mean, I guess one way I sort of look at that, Ahmed, is, you know, you're as strong as your weakest link. So, you know, if you aren't taking care of you know, the people at the bottom, you know, you're not going to have the success that you want to have. I mean, and I would say my experience with boards in that capacity, I've just personally found them to be very supportive, very concerned about that. You know, because they're people too. I mean, they're people, you know, just like you and I. So I'm not aware of any issues. I'll put it like that. I mean, my perception is that, you know, boards, you know, well, okay, executive boards more so than boards. I mean, because again, you know, it's in the room where it happens that it really happens. You know, so I like to think that boards and executive boards are sensitive to that. I don't, you know, that's in the big scheme of an arts organization or in any organization, you know, labor typically is your biggest cost. In the realm of theater, I mean, it's labor that gets the show on, you know, whether it's the actor, whether it's the technician, the lighting, or whatever. So you have to be very sensitive to, you know, retaining those people. So I've not found any issues personally.
Well, I don't know if that's an issue for Osborn, but as I said, we've been at the Playhouse and we've been at the Rep for a long time. I cannot remember, and I could be wrong, and I love to be wrong and be corrected, but I cannot remember a time when there was more than one Black employee at the Playhouse. And the only time I remember when there was more than one Black employee at the Rep is when you both worked there. And, you know, I'm talking about 30 plus years. So that's a problem.
I will say, when I came onto the Playhouse, I made 3. We are back down to 2. We have one of each, one male, one female. It's like the real world.
Yeah, we're at 2 here.
Maybe you can have some babies and raise them up. You have one male, one female. Maybe that's what you're expected to do. I don't know, but we have to do better. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do better.
I know we're getting sort of short on time. We're getting pretty close to time, but I don't want to leave here without bringing up Mr. and Mrs. August. What was it? 2002? If I'm not mistaken, there was a calendar where the two of you, a San Diego theater calendar where the two of you appeared as Mr. and Mrs. August, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back a ways, you know, when we were trying to figure out ways to raise money to support an organization at the Performing Arts League, we came up with a really good idea to do a calendar. I think it was based off of a movie with similar situations. So yeah, we were just one of 12. That's all it was. We were just one of 12 couples organizations who participated in that calendar, and it was. I like to think it was very successful. I think any calendars remaining are collector's items. I have a few, and I'm willing to sell them at a price. Actually, I was offered $100 for one.
He was offered $700.
Yeah.
I tried to get my hands on one to have some visual art for this here conversation, but I couldn't find it.
And I was trying to buy that one back. So
Sam was in that nudie calendar too.
Yeah, there was a lot of folks that we know that are still around this community today that appeared in that calendar.
there was a lot of skin in that calendar.
There was a lot of skin in that calendar. You had skin in the game at the time.
You know what, Cole? You are uninvited to Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, just totally uninvited.
I'm gonna show up anyway. You know I am.
Where are you getting this information from? That's, you know, I mean, you're asking, I mean, you know, that's like a rumor or something that you.
We told y'all what room you was walking into.
I was gonna say it was a rumor, but you know, that wouldn't.
Oh, but there's proof out there. That's no rumor.
Hey,
But I do want to. I speak in. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Dea. Go ahead. Yes.
I just wanted to share one thing that Osborn did is he said that he can't act or sing or dance, but he actually danced in Malashot, So You Think You Could Dance.
That's right, I did.
Yeah, he did. And did you come in third? I think he shaved his chest, you know, so he could look more like a professional dancer. I think if he had just worn an outfit that was a little bit more revealing, he probably would have won the contest. Yeah.
The person who won had a really skimpy costume, you know, 4 legs and stuff like that. And now see, this is very funny because, you know, when I agreed to do that, I really wasn't, you know, I wasn't taking it very seriously. They gave us 10 free lessons, and, you know, after that, you know, and after 10 lessons, I still couldn't do anything. So I had to pay for lessons. And that's when it became serious. That's you know, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was because I needed to practice. You know,
that's commitment.
Yeah. And, you know, so, yeah.
I feel like I need to put in a call to John Malashot to see if there is footage of this somewhere.
We gotta get to the archives.
You have better uses of your time.
Oh no, I don't, Osborn. No, I do not.
We got more. We got enough time on our hands. No.
I feel the Playhouse has a spring fundraiser coming up. I feel like we're still looking for our entertainment for the fundraiser.
You guys are really, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, be careful with what information you give to us. If you haven't figured that out by now.
It's just the 4 of us talking. Don't worry.
That's it. Just the 4 of us. Just the 4 of us.
You know, we're coming up. We're coming up on 7 o'clock. It's been an hour and a half, and we don't want to keep you all night. But I really want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. This has been a great conversation, and it's what I knew it would be. You know, and we do really, really appreciate it. You guys are a treasure here in San Diego, and like we were saying before we came on, you know, that's the other aspect of this platform is that, you know, we want people to know what the love and the life and the talent that is here in this town. And I speak as a person who entered this industry, professionally. Like you were saying, besides Nikki Cooper, I didn't know anybody else who worked in ticketing who was Black and who was a manager. I didn't know anybody else. The path I've came, there wasn't really anybody else, who looked like me to ask about. I've had to learn everything I've done. I tell young people, everything you see me do, I didn't know how to do when I got here. Like, I didn't know how to do it. I had to learn how to do it, and culturally it's been weird because there was never anybody. I didn't know another Black ticketing manager. I didn't know another Black IT manager. I didn't know another Black systems information manager. And before I started doing the aspect that I do now, I didn't really know anybody else Black who worked in development. There was nobody for me, but like, hey, bruh, hey, sis, what happens with it? It wasn't there. Like, it just culturally wasn't there. A lot of the stuff I'm learning on this philanthropy side, stuff that I never knew. I wasn't exposed to it. My parents are from the deep, 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 dark swamps of Alabama. This is no life that they were around or had any aspect of knowing or could hand off to me. They just knew to put me in a position to, go and blaze a trail, son, figure it out. So, these are conversations that are not just for us, but they are for the younger people who are watching, who are looking and are trying to figure out and find their way. So I really appreciate you two joining us tonight. This has been really special and a great conversation. And, me and Jacole, and we want to give a shout out to Freedom. That's the guy who we cannot get him on this thing.
We'll see him next time.
We keep trying. Hey, bro, what do you like? He is just but
I think he's gonna join us for Chris Berry and Sam. I think Freedom's gonna join us.
Okay,
yeah.
I hope so. But we just talked about this, that we love this opportunity to talk. We love this opportunity to get the knowledge, and we love this opportunity to to share guests like you with the whole theater community, and for them to really understand what this is about and understand the love that we have for this, but then also to let them understand what it is from this side. It's different. It's a different view. And it's a different walk, and it comes with a different set of cultural obstacles, and so we really do appreciate you guys coming on tonight and talking.
I do want to say one other thing. What gets measured gets improved upon. And by that, I mean, if we could have this conversation a year from now and we could count some successes, I think the four of us would feel good about that. So I would say that's my parting thought. What gets measured gets improved upon. And I think you guys have a good idea of who is where, who's doing what, who's on boards, et cetera. I would say if we could take an inventory at the beginning of this year and compare notes at the end of the year, because again, too, what's, if you don't have something on paper, it's just an idea, and we can talk about that, every month. But I think if we could document, or at least, like I said, really do an assessment of where we are, then we know need to improve on.
That's right.
Absolutely. I want to echo Ahmed's thanks to the two of you for being here. And when I first started the conversation the second time with Dea about coming on the show, she said to me, "Why does everybody keep telling me I need to tell my story? Why does people keep telling me I need to go out and tell my story?" And I said, it's because we need to hear it. You may not need to tell it, but we need to hear it.
We need to hear it.
And so that's why people keep asking you to tell it. And so thank you so much for the two of you for coming on and telling a tiny bit of your story. As always with We Are Listening, I didn't get to half the things that I had written down to talk about. I mean, these two have stories for days. And I only got to pull a couple of them out of my pocket. But I couldn't be more honored that you all said yes to us.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being persistent. I mean, the persistent is it gets forward. So persistent.
And when we come back next year, I will tell the story of when we first met Sam.
Oh yeah, I want to hear that.
It's one of my favorites. I was trying to get to it, Dee. I was trying to segue it in there.
Look, you need to come back just for that.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations
Yeah.
to you both on such a wonderful show and long continued success.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you to the Hurston crew for showing up in mass.
Y'all roll deep.
Roll deep.
Y'all roll deep. All up in the room.
Go to bed, Cruz. Good night.
Yeah. Do your homework.
And Jacole, thank you again for another wonderful episode. Everybody who's in the audience, thank you for joining us tonight. And make sure you come back in 2 weeks because we have a very anticipated episode. Hopefully a lot of questions that you guys have been asking will get answered. We will have Sam Woodhouse, Chris Ashley, and Barry Edelstein all here together. And hopefully Freedom will be on the call too. But we will have those 3 gentlemen here together, and that should be a spectacular conversation. So everybody go to sdrep.org/listening to get all the links and register. And Dea, Osborn, again, thank you. Jacole, thank you. And again, to our off-screen MVP, Sharisa, thank you for running this thing and making it run smoothly. And with that, I'll shut up. Y'all have a good night, good weekend, and we'll see y'all in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for
Take care.
listening.
Thank you.